Hi everybody, it's Kimberly back with the Twin Flame family, and as I promised you, I'm going to start our July soul coaching series, which is self-mastery. So I have up on my board here a little plan for the month, and these are self-mastery tools for ascension. In this segment, I'm going to be talking about how to identify a core wound and how do we change the belief system that we've carried for so long around that wound, maybe even usually unknowingly. So first off, I want to talk about, for twin flames especially, or anyone who's stumbling upon this video, but especially for twin flames, I work with so many of you, and I know that even in myself, we say, oh, but I know where that comes from, or I already know, I already did that work. I've been doing this work for so long. And I have to say that you wouldn't be seeking guidance. You wouldn't be struggling so hard. And you wouldn't keep running into yourself again and again if everything had completely shifted or if you had healed it from the core. So sometimes we heal pieces of the core wound, or we have like a general knowledge of the vicinity. Like, you know, you think about on a map, like pinpointing an exact location, right? Like the exact degree or the exact city on that map. It's different than just saying, oh, well, my wound lives somewhere over here in, like I live on Cape Cod. So my wound lives somewhere over here on the map in New England. That's not the same as saying, oh, it lives specifically right here, and pinpointing it on the map. Because I find in my work that when we can actually pinpoint the memories, the actual root of the wound, that is when we become fully aware and can begin healing. Now, many practitioners, including or many spiritual gurus that we all follow, some practice the notion that we don't need to go into the shadow self because it just brings us into a lower vibration. We don't want to revisit that lower vibration. But to me, that's like a kind of a fear-based philosophy, because that's like saying we're afraid to go there because we might get stuck there, you know? And in my experience, the big aha moments, the huge transformations, and the big healing comes from actually pinpointing the exact memory or memories around the core wound from childhood. And a lot of times this will also click into place because it's there in childhood, even if it's stuff that we've carried from past lives. Okay, do you understand that? It comes forth again in this lifetime. So in your healing that wound, you're also drawing the awareness for the past life stuff as well. You're starting to heal that which you've carried forward. So, like I said, oftentimes you come to me for coaching and it's like the blinders are still on. It's saying, I've already done this. Your ego doesn't want you to get to the next level or recognize that there's a like deeper place that is calling out for you to heal so that you can start to resolve this and really shift the perception, change the belief, and live a new life. And a much happier, joyful life in which you're guided towards that which you want to attract, and you're no longer attracting that same wounded energy into your experience over and over and over again. Plus, this is clearing out major blocks as you do this with your twin flame. So when we talk about going back and recalling the memory, so many of you are like, well, like, how do I do that? I kind of know. Like, I know, and you give me a general sense. Like, for example, well, I know. This is what it always sounds like. It's kind of funny. I know. Yeah, my dad was abusive, and, you know, he physically abused me or whatever. And my mom, yeah, she was like really submissive and didn't, you know, stand in her power. And yeah, and that's what it's all about. And that's why I'm all messed up. And they're messed up, and I'm messed up. And that's it. And it's like, okay, so you know the general vicinity, right? You know your wound is like on the map somewhere. So I always advise, go back. Okay, so then you often tell me, I'm aware I have the fear of abandonment, or rejection, or just feeling like unrequited love, because I know, I didn't receive that love from my parents. Or for many of us, it's like the same themes that recur, right? It's like rejection, which really is like the self-value systems that we need to align with, the self-love. The abandonment, which is pretty much universal for all twin flames, right? In one way or another. Often with twin flames who get involved with narcissists, or those with narc tendencies, or attract that, often there was a time in which you were victimized, okay, in your childhood. So, or you were victimized by a narc sibling or parent. You had that around you. What else? Those are the real big ones. And then there's also the squashing of of our innate powers, right? Our spiritual gifts. Those things that were persecuted in past lifetimes and we let go of. And then in this lifetime, we chose these parents that sort of dimmed our light, squashed those gifts down. Either we were like born into a very religious belief system, or that was passed down ancestrally, where it was very just closed-minded, this is the way it is, or we were just shut down at an early age. Those gifts were just shut down. So then we have to go in and reclaim our spiritual gifts, learn how to listen to ourselves. And it's also a new kind of confidence and trust that we abandoned long ago. So those are some of the common ones, and I'm sure I'll think of others as I'm doing the video. But what I often say to my clients is, reach back. If you just reach back for the memory, it will come forth. You don't need to dig. We don't need to wallow in the depressing, sad memories. It's just, as we're thinking about this, and when we're in the soul coaching sessions, I'll say, reach back. And if you tell me, well, my fears around abandonment, my dad left or something when I was, 6 or 3 or 5 or whatever age it was. And I'll say to you, what did that feel like? Well, I felt hurt. Well, do you remember a time in which you were crying, or you felt trapped, and you felt like, what is the memory around the tears? What is the memory around the anger? And then it's like, okay, then you go to the next level. You go like, it's almost like going under the surface, and you're like, well, actually, and you think about it for a minute and you go, well, actually, I do remember. I remember that feeling of feeling so hurt. I remember this particular time that I was crying so hard because I thought it would bring him back. Okay, how did that make you feel? That when you were having your fit, when you were crying, when you felt trapped, when you felt angry, when you felt frustrated, that memory, that contains the core wound. Because from that day forward, you formed a belief, and you've been carrying that belief ever since. And you can tell yourself all the affirmations you want. You can do all the spiritual healing you desire, and you can gain all the knowledge in the world. But if you don't recognize that inner child who really still needs a hug and is calling out for your adult self to go in and sort of integrate that into your awareness right now, it's never going to heal at the level that you desire it to heal at, so that we can see this outward transformation, this outward shift. It's going to be an active inner vibration for as long as we keep it there and stay in that wounded energy. So a lot of times when we find that moment, it's like, and sometimes this isn't even like stuff that we've thought of in years, but just reach back and that one memory comes to the surface. It's always inevitable. It could be 1 or 2. You may find one when you were like 5 or 6 and one memory when you were a teenager. And again, it's like the recurring pattern, or it's something that maybe happened in early childhood that you saw again very profoundly in your teenage years. But nevertheless, you will uncover this. And it's not about staying there in the stuckness of that yucky, wounded energy. It's about just bringing it up to the surface and bringing it to light. Having the little light bulb moment and going, aha. For me, so I'll give you a personal example. So I thought in my twin flame dynamic, in our first separation, I could have sworn, wow, I really cleared a lot in that separation. No doubt I did. I went back and traced the root of all of the patterns I've had in relationships with infidelity and cheating, and where that was in my value system and where that stemmed from in my childhood. Uncovered the core of fear of abandonment, uncovered the insecurity thing, and started to realign with my values. And really, this helped clear a lot, right? But not all of it, but a lot. So here we go again. Second go around with my twin flame as we connect in the physical world. We have this second round of physical, union. And we've played this out for a while. And now we're in another separation. And in this separation, I'm realizing and recognizing that I have attracted people in my past, as well as with my twin flame, because he's mirrored everything for me. The rejection, the abandonment, the insecurities, the jealousy, you name it. But there's one big piece that I didn't get in the first separation that I'm getting now. And that is, and I've said it a little bit before, but it's really been a big aha moment for me in this past week or two, in which I remember as a young child, I have a sibling who has very narcissistic tendencies. Okay, she could be a full-on narcissist, but she has narcissistic tendencies. And when I was little, like 5, 6, 7, 8, for years, she used to go. So I was always trying to please her. We had an age difference, a 6 years age difference, and I was always trying to please her, doing things for her, and giving her things and making her things, and I just she looked up to her, right? She was the older sister, and I was a very compassionate little girl, and I just wanted I was the little healer, the little band-aid. When she would fight with my parents, I would try to be the band-aid, or try to be the glue. Okay, so it put me, because I was the empath, so it put me in that codependent empath, conscientious way, right? And she didn't treat me very nice. Of course, there was an age difference. She was a teenager, I was a kid, and she had these narc tendencies by that age in her teenage years. So I would be doing something that she didn't like trying to be sweet or trying to be with her, wanting her attention. And out of nowhere, she would be like, "Mom, Kimberly hit me." And I would be like floored, because I knew I hadn't touched my sister. I hadn't gone near her. I was being blamed. I was being accused for something I didn't do. And there was this little do-gooder little girl who wanted to be seen in a good light, who was overly conscientious, who was trying to be the Band-Aid, who was totally tuned in and tapped into everyone's feelings in the household. And I was being blamed. And it created a frustration in me. And then my mom would come and she would point fingers and say that I said and did things that I didn't do, and I would cry because I couldn't get it out of my throat that I was really telling the truth, and it felt like I was being suffocated, and it was the worst feeling in the world. And you know what? That happened so often in my childhood. And then it happened again with my father when I was a teenager and when I was a young adult, where he victimized me. And then a few times I had dated other guys with narc tendencies, not full narcissists, but there were 2 other relationships, not many, but 2 out of the many relationships where I was victimized like that. But I didn't realize it went back to that wound in childhood. This is coming from the separation with my twin right now, because I have been once again playing that role of the conscientious, trying to be the Band-Aid, the do-gooder, not because it's not innately me. It is innately me. That's who I am. I enjoy doing for others. I enjoy giving to the person I'm with. I enjoy being compassionate and But I must have this active vibration. I do have this active vibration of that wounded energy in which I was victimized. And so I just see it reappear again and again and again and again. And you will clear it with your twin flame. You will. You will. And that is why it comes up in sometimes the most severe ways. It's when you meet your twin flame, it's like you're ready to hear it. You've come, like you've had those 2 other relationships or those other patterns already that have led up to this that you didn't listen to or you didn't see. And with your twin flame, everything is going to be called out to be healed so that you can become whole again. You. It's about you. It's not about him, what he has to do. Because I could look at this and go, my twin flame is an addict, a narcissist. He's got so much work to do. I hope he gets, help. And I do. And I do. And I hope that he wants to see the light for himself because I want that for his well-being. But that has nothing to do with me or what I take away from this experience or what my work to do is in this separation with us. And so there's a little girl within me who has a belief that believes, no one is going to believe me. Or if I maybe have to overly prove myself. And I thought I had worked through a lot of that, but it's not even that. It's just this little girl victim who needs a hug. And it's like, boom, it clicked. It clicked into place for me. And it will. So how do you change the belief? Okay, so whether it's I'm not worthy enough or even if I'm a good person, I still get blamed. I still get blamed. Or I still get put on the tribunal or those types of beliefs. Or I'm not good enough to be loved. Or I'm, everyone I love leaves me. Like these are the types of beliefs that we carry forward from these wounds. And it's about write these down. Write down what the belief is from the wound. And you can, if you don't have it already, many of you have worked with me or you've been on the support group calls or you've worked with me in private session, and I have resource tools for you. Projection exercises and shadow work exercises that are helpful. And if you don't have them, you can contact me via the website and I'll email you the worksheets. Because there are specific exercises you can do to uncover this stuff, to take you through this progression, to uncover what the wound is, where the memory is, what the feelings are around it, what the belief was formed, what belief was formed from early childhood that you've carried forward, and how can we start to find evidence for the new belief? Because the new belief feels something like, I don't attract that wounded energy anymore. I don't attract that. I'm never going to be a victim again. And I know that because I believe myself. I trust myself. And I don't have to feel stuck or stifled in a relationship ever again because I love myself. I'm supported. I believe that people believe me. I believe that my good, my light is seen. So there's some piece of me that must believe or has believed that my good isn't seen. And so when you become overly conscientious or you try to make up for something, you are in essence saying, or you're trying to prove yourself. And for me, when I get trapped in that wounded energy, when I get victimized, oh boy, it's been anger, sadness, frustration, lashing out. The reaction, the trigger is big. It's a big trigger. And many of you, that happens just from your twin flame walking away from you, saying, no, I don't want to be with you, or I want to, I'm going to go pursue this other relationship. You get triggered in that way, where it's, are we going to false masculine energy, or unbalanced? We go into the unbalanced polarity. Whether you're a masculine or a feminine watching this video, we go into a very unhealthy, unbalanced place in either our masculine or feminine. And that's unhealthy. And that is something that this process and this relationship, this connection is helping you heal. So write down the beliefs that you have around the core wound that you have kept active for a long time. Sometimes they're ingrained in us and we don't even realize it. It's also important to forgive our parents and forgive our siblings and forgive our caretakers where these wounds formed in such a way that, and I also have meditations for this as well, for releasing the parental wounds, for seeing your parents through their eyes, through what they went through what they carried into this lifetime from their parents, from their ancestral, what was passed on to them. And it is a more exercise of compassion that brings you to forgiveness. It's like lifting up, way up, so that you can see where this came from, right? So although I feel victimized, the truth is that my sister didn't get the love that she needed when she was young, right? And not that my parents were unloving, but that some sort of wound was formed in her that caused her to take on the narc tendencies. And that was probably brought on from stuff that my parents, that were passed down to them from their parents about how they love and how they teach their children and how they discipline and the dysfunction in their own relationship. And because they were soulmates, my parents. And, there was a lot of dysfunction. There was a lot of, big karmic stuff happening all the time. And so it's important in order to, you can say, oh, I healed it. I forgive my father, my mother 15 years ago, or I did this work 5 years ago, or I did it 3 years ago. If you still have that wounded little girl in you, I'm telling you, or wounded little boy, there's probably a new layer or a deeper layer of forgiveness that you can reach. And it comes with compassion. It comes with, rising up above the situation and healing it like in the most integrative way. That means from your adult eyes, looking back now with the new knowledge, with taking the blinders off. The blinders keep us blind. The ego keeps us blind, doesn't want us to get hurt again, but it also keeps us from seeing the truth within us. And this process is about your healing. And the way to clear the blocks in your twin flame dynamic, especially in separation, is to work on yourself. And how do we build evidence for the new belief, the one in which we feel we are going to be loved? We are loved. The universe supports us. We don't have to prove ourselves. Love is always requited. Everyone loves us. We are always supported. Those beliefs that need our self-love, our realignment with our values, our understanding of why we beat up on ourselves, or why we haven't had that trust or confidence in ourselves, or why we felt like we're unworthy, or why we felt like, when you get abused as a child, often you just expect to be abused as an adult. You just expect it. It's a fear vibration that's locked in there. And then you will be abused. So it's about clearing that up now at a deeper level, so that instead of welcoming in abuse and victimization, we are welcoming in this new energy that aligns with our new beliefs, which is, I am one with everyone. Some of this too, I have to say, in recent sessions, I've very much seen that in looking at the father and looking at the mother and looking at the sister who did unto us, right? Who inflicted this wound. Okay, we could say it that way if many of us look at it this way. Remember that the healing and the forgiveness that I was just talking about is surrounded by now seeing it from our adult perspective and having the compassion for what our father went through, for what our mother went through, for what was passed down to them, for the conditions that they grew up with, for the unlove that they, received, for the love that they never received, and for the way that they were taught to communicate. They didn't know what they didn't know. And you don't know. You don't know at this point what you don't know. But many of you know a lot now. And you're becoming very, very aware. And this is the path to enlightenment. And this is about now going back and saying, okay, now I know what I know. And I am going to go back, and instead of judging my mom, instead of judging my dad, instead of labeling them, instead of labeling my sister or my brother, I am going to, as a narc, as an abuser, as you know, because we do that. We do those physical labels. My dad was an abuser. My mom was codependent. My sister was a narcissist. My brother was a, whatever it is. And what Spirit is asking us to do in the Twin Flame journey is to go in and drop those labels. Because you are your mother. You are your father. You are your sister. You are your neighbor. You are the homeless man on the street. You are everybody around you. We are one. And I can guarantee you there are traits from the people that afflicted the wounds unto you that you have carried around that are exactly the same as they are as well. And it's not about seeing the separation now. It's part of the healing is about seeing the oneness, the expansiveness of this. That's where the forgiveness comes from. It's hard, it's going to be very difficult for you to forgive from a place of separation. They were like this and I'm like this. And in a way, that is judgment. You're judging because either you've disowned those traits so much or they are exactly the traits that you carry within you still. And you don't realize it. And you're really just projecting, judging yourself. Most likely, though, they're traits that you disowned. They're things that you would never want to be, right? You separated from them. You've suppressed them. You've pushed them away. I would never be abusive. I would never abandon my kid. I would never do that to my kid. I hear you guys judge. You're judging your twins' karmic partners, too. Oh, she's a bad mother. Oh, she's a bad, he's a bad father. These are places for you to examine because this is projection. And when we feel separate with our twins' karmic partner, from our parents, from our relatives, from our friends, from everybody, whomever we're judging, that's blocking our healing. So let me recap this for you before I close the segment. Your core wound needs to be identified by pinpointing it on the map. That means reaching back and letting the memory come forward. So when we know the general vicinity, where the wound is or what it surrounds in general, go deeper, go under the surface a little bit. Do you remember a time where you were crying, where you felt angry? What was that memory? Specifically, call it all up. Write it down. What did that make you feel like? What did you start believing from that day forward from that? How have you seen this repeat in your life? How many times has it repeated? Okay? And where? How have these patterns showed up over and over and over again? And what's happening in your current twin flame dynamic that's shedding the light on this? And then it's, okay, well, that's that old belief now. Let me go in and give my little inner child a hug and understand that my parents or my sister or my brother, my caretaker, did not mean to do this to me. Now I'm going to have a forgiveness period where I'm releasing this, where I'm understanding where they came from, what was wounded within them, why I'm one with them and not separate from them. And I'm going to love them and release it and forgive. And then from that place, I'm going to find a new belief, one in which is connected to my divinity, my divine self. And that is the truth of who I am, not what someone else or what some wound has caused me to believe. I am light. I am good. I am worthy of love. I am not someone who will ever be victimized, who deserves to be victimized. I know this. I am worthy of love. I am supported. I receive this all the time. And from this, you can keep a little evidence journal. And remember, you're finding evidence from the world around you all the time. The signs, those are gifts to you. the person who's nice and lying to you, any situation in which you're not being victimized, you are being supported, you are being loved. It could be the stranger just smiling at you on the street. It could be, watch how the law of attraction will reflect this new energy back to you. Keep a little journal, a little log of it, because that's your building your evidence journal for this new belief. And you'll see as it gains a little momentum, then it will gain more and more and more. And you're going to shift out of that judging your ancestors, judging your parent, judging whoever inflicted the pain onto you. You're going to shift out of the feeling separate from others. You're going to shift out of the, oh yeah, I've healed this with the blinders on, because you're going to have healed it at a deeper level in which you're actually creating an outward shift, in which everybody around you is reflecting that new energy back to you, not the wounded energy, this new belief. And then when it comes time to line up with your twin flame or whatever soul partnership is in alignment for you at this time, you will see more love. You will feel more accepted. You will line up with what you deserve, what your divine self knows it deserves, and how it wants to be treated. So I will leave you with that. If you want to work with me individually in a soul coaching capacity, we can actually facilitate this work together. And you can do this by visiting my website and clicking on schedule a session. There's a whole slew of services there, not just for twin flames with readings and guidance sessions, but also soul coaching sessions. Very progressive. A lot can be accomplished in just a few sessions, so I highly encourage it, and I look forward to working with you. Visit thetwinflamefamily.com to find out more, and I will see you guys in the next segment, okay? Next segment we're going to be talking about our emotions and going into our emotions, okay? So I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.